This episode of It's the End of the World as We Know It and I Feel Fine was made possible by contributions from slaves like you. Spank you very much.
Attention, citizens! Due to the financial irresponsibility and incompetence of your leaders, Cobra has found it necessary to restructure your nation's economy.
It's the end of the world as we know it. I feel fine.
Good morning, slaves, and welcome to another edition of It's the End of the World as We Know It and I Feel Fine, the show that says, hold the bacon. I am your host, the Stimulator, and March was a pretty amazing month. The Wall Street Journal reports that the global economy is back on a path of recovery with an increase of 2% of worldwide GDP.
Stocks soared. A huge GDP report. 3.3% revised up from 1.9%. It basically ends the recession scenario, does it not?
Also, scientists from the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change say that trends in global warming have been reversed, and researchers at ExxonMobil have discovered a method to cut carbon emissions from the burning of gasoline by 99.9%. In nuclear news, Russia and the US have signed a treaty in which both countries agree to destroy all nuclear weapons by 2012. In Middle East news, Prime Minister-designate Benjamin Netanyahu has agreed to demolish all settlements in the West Bank and declared the creation of a Palestinian state by Friday of this week. Also, the problem of world hunger has been solved, a cure for cancer has been found, whiskey is good for you, cigarettes don't kill you, ice cream won't make you fat, and Barack Obama is both Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. April Fool's suckers. In real news, March was more like the year of the pig.
The police coming straight from the underground. A young nigga got it bad 'cause I'm brown.
In Montreal, thousands clashed with the fuzz during a protest against police brutality. Tabernacle. Yep, no one does riots better than the Quebecois. Anger against the Montreal Popo was sparked last summer by the fatal shooting of 18-year-old Freddy Villanueva. In Vancouver, police fatally shot Michael Van Hubbard, a homeless man who police suspected was breaking into cars. It turns out he was the wrong man, but the cops felt he had to die when he pulled a very menacing X-Acto knife.
I think it could have been handled way different. I don't think that this man had to die.
Also in Vancouver, hundreds of committed freedom fighters braved tough weather to confront the so-called greenest games ever, or
The 5 cock rings of death.
the International Olympic Committee was holding the 8th World Sport and the Environment Conference in my town to push their greenwashing agenda. Well, the motherfucking resistance was there to call them out on their bullshit. Here's Harjap Grewal of the Olympic Resistance Network.
It's a marketing campaign for these companies that have realized that most of the world knows that they're destroying the earth. And what they now need to do is pretend to be green. And what the Olympics provides them, it provides them with the best opportunity to quote-unquote show the world that they care about the environment. And what do we say? Hell no!
In economic news, Wall Street puppet Barack Obama told the American sheeple to take a chill pill and ease up on anger against the greedy capitalist pigs that ruin the economy.
The rest of us can't afford to demonize every investor or entrepreneur who seeks to make a profit. That drive is what has always fueled our prosperity.
Yo, Barack, if you ask me, it's exactly that drive that's destroying the mother of the planet. But our new commander in chief is simply doing his best to delay the inevitable rebellion. As I have reported in the last 4 shows, rebellions are well underway in Europe. In France, over 3 million people took to the streets in protest against the country's economic policies. And on the lead up to the G20 meetings, demonstrations took place in Berlin, Rome, Vienna, Paris, and Madrid. In London, over 40,000 took to the streets as a prelude to the massive protest planned against the G20, or the 20 gangsters of the industrialized world. Hundreds of thousands more are expected to arrive from all over Europe and wreak havoc on the close meetings where these punk motherfuckers gather to split up the global pie. Here's Obama's second-in-command calling on the protesters to have some patience.
We are moving as rapidly as we can to change the direction of our country and our policies. But we're going to have to ask and we don't expect to get it, but we have to ask for a little bit of patience.
If you think that's ridiculous, meet Canadian Senator Nancy Ruth. The honorable senator was upset that geese kept issuing in the yard of her second home. Her solution? Shoot the geese and feed them to the poor. Many suggested that the senator herself became the meal for the less fortunate. After all, she's got a few extra pounds to spare. But I actually like her idea. No, hear me out. I propose that the government provide hunting rifles and ammunition to the poor and allow them to set up camp in the yards of rich people's homes. That way, anytime they spot a goose, they can shoot it and prevent any sheep from reaching the beautiful lawns of the wealthy. This would also help the economy. Last year I went down to St. Paul and Denver to give media support to the motherfucking resistance during the RNC and the NC. Once that pork fest was over, I went back home and gangsta chilled for a few weeks. But as I was letting the stress drain from my brain, some brave Jedi Knights were locked up and others were facing some serious charges for confronting the evil empire. If you were in the clink, you would like to know that your peeps in the outside world have your back. Well, this week I bring you two very special motherfucking guests, Lindsay Shively of Crass and Rob Zernick of the RNC8. Hey Rob and Lindsay, how the fuck are y'all?
Doing well. It's still snowing in Minnesota.
Alright.
So, what the fuck is Crass?
Crass is the community RNC arrestee support structure. It's a organization here in the Twin Cities that was formed immediately following the Republican National Convention, and a group of arrestees, legal workers, and supporters came together to plan out our strategy for dealing with the criminal cases coming out of the Republican National Convention, and also as a way to strengthen our movement and strengthen the attention brought to the issue of police brutality and the arrests that we saw during the RNC.
Why is RST support so important?
People who have to go through the court system and go through jail, that can be a really isolating experience. And so arrestee support is a way of the community coming together to help the people who have been most directly targeted by the police state. And it also helps bring political attention to some of the intense abuses by the Ramsey County Sheriff and Hennepin County Police Department, the FBI, and all the law enforcement agencies that were here for the RNC.
Every movement has its flares, ours being the RNC at this point. And directly after, there's generally a receding point where you either completely drop off and fail each other and create a situation where it isn't a movement, it was just a social happening, or you sustain each other through and have another flare where you go even higher. I guess Crass seeks to do that, and that's why it's important.
So, who the fuck are the RNC8?
The RNC are a group of organizers who got rounded up during the 2008 RNC. They were targeted specifically because they were anarchists or radical. Now they're facing up to 12 years in prison time, 4 felonies. 4 felonies, which 2 of are conspiracy felonies and contain terrorist enhancements, which is the first of the use of the Minnesota Patriot Act in history, I guess.
Are the RNC8 terrorists?
I guess it all depends who you ask. if you ask anybody who has probably the slightest amount of a brain, no.
What precedents could be set if you are found guilty?
Our case sets a precedent in the sense that a group that was not necessarily doing it too much different than, say, like Code Pink, minus like the hierarchy and their organizing, is now being charged as terrorists. You know, essentially the same thing as like people who like strap bombs to their chests and go kill people. You know, it sets a precedent that like if found guilty and if we're convicted, will open up an entire like floodgate for, you know, more charges against, you know, people like Code Pink, people like, and you know United for Peace and Justice, or, you know, what have you, maybe Oprah, I don't know.
And that about does it for this edition of It's the End of the World As We Know It, and I Feel Fine. For links to Crass and the RNC 8, or to comment on the show, just visit my website, stimulator.tv. Join us next time for a discussion on the importance of pirate radio with renegade DJ Skidmar Bob.
We refuse to go legal because, first of all, we don't want to censor ourselves. We want to be able to, you know, safe, safe, and all those other great words.
And don't touch that dial.
Remember, kids, you can podcast high-quality video of this show at submedia.tv.
And this is Max. He couldn't be here today, but
he's a badass.
Here he is for you to share.
The final flick I'm going to talk about was not screened at the Seattle International Film Festival, but rather is one I saw at an advanced screening. The movie is Sicko, and it is, in my opinion, the best film Michael Moore has made so far. It, too, is a wake-up slap, in this case regarding the healthcare system here in the United States, which, like most everything else, is designed to make the rich richer, rather than do much of anything to take care of us. Michael Moore's movie is a must-see. It's a political bombshell, and it may well change the political landscape in America. The U.S. pays more per capita for health care than any other country on earth, but we are the only industrial country without universal health coverage. As a result, we have worse statistics than some third-world countries. Go see the movie. I laughed my ass off, and I cried through more of it than I like to admit. Michael Moore is a giant, and I'm not referring to his belt size.
We got an issue in America. Too many good docs are getting out of business. Too many OBGYNs aren't able to practice their love with women all across this country.
When Michael Moore decided to make a movie on the healthcare industry, top-level executives were on the defensive. What were they hiding?
That's not on, right?
No.
Okay.
The intent is to maximize profits.
If you denied more people health care, you got a bonus.
When you don't spend money on somebody, it's a savings to the company.
I want America to have the finest health care in the world.
4 healthcare lobbyists for every member of Congress. Here's what it costs to buy these men, and this woman, this guy, and this guy. And the United States slipped to 37 in healthcare around the world, just slightly ahead of Slovenia.
I denied a man a necessary operation and thus caused his death. This secured my reputation and it ensured my continued advancement in the healthcare field.
In the world's richest country.
I worked 3 jobs.
You worked 3 jobs? Yes. Uniquely American, isn't it? I mean, that is fantastic.
Laughter isn't the best medicine.
I get a bill from my insurance company telling me that the ambulance ride wasn't pre-approved.
I don't know when I was supposed to pre-approve it. After I gained consciousness in the car, before I got in the ambulance.
It's the only medicine.
There was actually one place on American soil that had free universal health care.
Which way to Guantanamo Bay?
Detainees representing a threat to our national security are given access to top-notch medical facilities.
Permission to enter. I have 3 9/11 rescue workers. They just want some medical attention, the same kind that the evildoers are getting. Hello?
Michael Moore's Sicko.
I'd like to spend the rest of the time on this show making a related point about the healthcare system in the U.S. You might not guess by looking at me, but I make my living as a registered nurse, working in the Regional Trauma Center here in Seattle. What I'm going to talk about now I learned years ago back when Hillary Clinton was going around giving speeches about reforming the healthcare system. That was early in the Bill Clinton administration, and it was at the same time that NAFTA was being negotiated between the U.S. and Canada. So while Hillary was giving speeches about healthcare reform, the U.S. was leaning on Canada pretty hard. It seems that in the U.S., a drug company that develops a new medicine gets patent protection on that drug for, I believe, it's 16 years, where no generic version of that drug is available. The idea is to pay back the pharmaceutical company for investing in the development of the drug. Of course, much of the research is funded by the government in the first place, but that point aside, there was a moment where the Clinton administration perceived a problem with the NAFTA treaty. Canada, you see, has a similar program set up for new drugs, but they only give the company 6 years of patent protection, which means that if the borders were opened up for free trade, there would be 10 years where cheap generic medicines would be available in Canada, but not in the U.S. Looking back on it now, it almost seems naive, since there have been so many subsequent efforts to keep Americans from buying cheap pharmaceuticals from Canada. But at the time, Hillary was speechifying, while other parts of the administration had the gloves off and were being damned aggressive trying to get Canada to lengthen their patent protections for pharmaceutical companies up to the American giveaway standard of 16 years. I figured if Hillary or the Democrats were serious about health care reform, they would have used that moment to reduce the giveaway by going for the Canadian standard. How big is the giveaway? It's off the charts big, and I'll tell you how I know. Back when all this was going on, the patent on the drug Zantac expired, and all of a sudden in the hospital we could get the generic version of the drug, whereas before we couldn't. Zantac, or ranitidine if you want to use the generic name, is a very good medication that prevents ulcers and reduces stomach acid. Nowadays you can get it over the counter, but for a long time it was a prescription only, and for years it was only available as Zantac. There was no generic version available, due to the patent protection business I've been talking about. But about the time of Hillary's healthcare campaign and the NAFTA treaty negotiations with Canada, Zantac's patent expired. Now remember, I work in a hospital. We have a book there that lists all the medications in the hospital formulary. Among other information is the cost per dose of each medication that's available for the doctor to prescribe. The idea is simple. If two different medicines will both work, and one's way cheaper than the other, the doctor might prescribe the cheaper medicine to save the patient some money. So the hospital lists the price per dose of every medicine. I happened to notice in the hospital formulary what the price difference was between the name brand Zantac and the generic version when it suddenly became available. Zantac cost about $3.30 per pill. The generic version was about 30 cents per pill. Now at 30 cents per pill, the pharmaceutical company isn't giving it away. They make a tidy profit. So the extra $3 per pill represents a super profit that comes from allowing pharmaceutical companies to have a monopoly on the medicine. I was startled at what the price difference was, so I did a little research. First, I found out how many patients were on Zantac at the time. That was easy to find out because the company that makes Zantac liked to brag about how well it was selling. Most patients were taking the medicine twice a day. If you do the math, $3 super profit per pill times 2 pills per day times the millions of people on the drug was an enormous amount of money in legally protected super profits, above and beyond the handsome profit to be made on generics. Multiply that by 365 days in a year times 16 years, and my calculator didn't have enough places for the amount of money involved. To put it in perspective, since I'm a nurse, I checked with the American Nurses Association to discover how many FTEs, or full-time equivalents, there are for registered nurses in the United States at the time. They also provided me with the figures for what the average wage of a registered nurse in America was. I did the math. Number of nurses times the average nurse's wage equals how much money goes into paying for nurses in the whole country. Do you know what I found out? That the super profits on Zantac alone was more than enough to pay all the wages for all the nurses at all the hospitals in America. That's how out of balance our system is, because it's not just Zantac. Multiply that super profit times all the proprietary medicines we have, where the generic version is not allowed by U.S. law. And Zantac was not a particularly greedy example. It's just the one I happened to notice because I was on duty when the patent expired and the generic version became available. The difference between proprietary and generic versions of many medicines is much more extreme. Michael Moore is right. The system is broken. It's designed to help rich companies profit off our misery. The system is the sickness. Go see his movie. Tell the ticket taker your nurse sent you. For Pepper Spray Productions and the Seattle Independent Media Center, this is Randy Rowland.
Channel with rhythm and information. Internet connect, network, private stations, media free, underground communication. Underground communication.
Los escucho. Amnistía.
I'm a soldier at war. I know you've seen my face before. I am red, white, and blue. I am black and brown and yellow too. I have killed and I have died, all alone and damaged deep inside. And the child I used to be was sacrificed for some insanity. Left the boy now half a man. My innocence was lost in a foreign land. Fought so hard and I fought so long. I fought for my country, right or wrong. In the eye of the slaughter, no star-spangled banner did I see. There is blood on the water, it's flowing like the blood inside of me. In smoke-filled rooms, the men of might will send your son somewhere to fight. And I am one of many more, just pawns in a holy war. In a field where the food used to grow, there's a murder of crows. my brother's hand. Why he died, I'll never understand. I'm a soldier at war. I know you've seen my face before. Just the name and loaded gun. One more lost, forsaken son. I'm a soldier at war. I'm a soldier at war. I'm a soldier at war.
Come on, everybody!
You can call me a fool, that's alright with me. I will live to see this good round world breaking free. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. They say they will incorporate the world over my dead body, over my dead body, over my dead body, over my. They say they will incorporate the world over my dead body, over my dead body, over my dead body, over my.
Democracies do not wage aggressive wars.